Why I don't drink any booze. And there's actually I used to drink stuff and I was okay with it, but it's actually several reasons. And I found out, the whole alcohol industry is a racket unto itself. And what burns me up actually is how a lot of things got started. Back in the day, none of this stuff was really taxed. Um, and when they pushed for prohibition, it was one of the biggest scams going. Like if you go way back, but it's how the government really screws up everything they get involved in, man. It's like, and that's why I just want to go back in history a little bit. This was the big propaganda. Will you back me? Showing like the military guy from World War One, or back booze. Vote yes for prohibition. So in other words, if you didn't vote yes for prohibition way back, when was that? 1921. Um, you were anti-American. So vote dry and all this type of stuff. But really, what was behind all this, way back when, was John D. Rockefeller didn't like the competition coming from the farmers who were providing alcohol for fuel to the new Ford Model T cars that were being driven by people more and more. There's the horse and buggy carriage was being replaced with automobiles. And automobiles back then could run on either gasoline from Standard Oil, which John D. Rockefeller controlled, or alcohol from farmers. And there was no tax. You just buy the alcohol. And actually, everybody loved driving their cars running on alcohol because the engines lasted much, much longer. It was cleaner burning fuel. The oil stayed cleaner. The emissions out of the tailpipe from the car were cleaner and all that other stuff. So everybody did prefer using alcohol. There's no tax back then on that. So he pushed this through as like a moral crusade, John D. Rockefeller. And it's the one thing they always neglect when they talk about this stuff. And I hear they're prohibition and they're tearing up all the alcohol. They found all these barrels. But what people want, people are going to get. That's really what it is. One way or the other, people are going to get it. Where there's a demand, people want it. This is something that's been going on for not just, a few decades. It's been going on thousands of years. People have been drinking alcohol, whether it's been wine or beer or, regular booze or whatever. People have been drinking it. So finally, prohibition ends in 1933, right? But the regulation didn't end. And this is like what bugs me about why I won't drink. Because, first off, everything is heavily taxed. And number two, you got to watch if you have any alcohol in your system when you're driving. That's another big racket going on. I remember back when I was in the Marine Corps, they had, and I don't want to play that game, play that, throw that dime in there, but it was something to aggravate the crap out of me. And that was the spark that really put me over where I'm not drinking anything. They had, I forget what it is, to show like driving under the influence, driving while impaired, there's different levels. Well, they decided on base that anything you register, anything at all, even if it's not against any kind of civilian regulation, that you would get charged from the Marine Corps for having any type of alcohol in your system at all. I was thinking, what kind of crap is that? You got this Marine Corps image where people drinking, rowdy, the tough guy image and all this. I can handle my liquor, and then you got, if you catch you with even one drop. I mean, I saw people. I never got busted for this stuff, but I saw people that were sitting in their car and they got out of a club. They didn't start the car up, but they were sitting in a car and they were sleeping it off before they drove, and they still got busted. Stuff like that aggravated the crap out of me, and after a while I says, well, screw it. I'm not going to support any clubs. I'm not going to support any taxes. I am not doing any of it. But, the government needs the money from alcohol. They need this. It's a significant part of what they're getting. That's really why they ended prohibition, because what was going on was there was too much mercantile trade going on that was not taxed. That's really what was going on. That's why they ended it. It wasn't. They were losing. The government was losing money. They figured, well, make it legal and we can tax the hell out of it. Plus, they regulate the hell out of it too. Nobody was freaking listening to the law. It's sort of like, the marijuana law. It's like, I don't smoke any weed, but I don't give a damn what people do. Um, People want to. I guess it's so easy to grow weed, or whatever the hell they got to do and get it. Whatever. It's so easy. It's everybody. It's in every city. Everybody's doing it. Not everybody's doing it, but it's popular. And just now they're starting to get into where it's legalized, but what they're doing is they're trying to tax it. The whole thing's a game. Then they'll have driving under the influence of a drug, and they'll say weed is a drug, you know. Then they'll charge you all kinds of money. Now, one of the things that really aggravated me, this is like a cartoon from the Great Depression or, with Prohibition, the bootlegger, the dope seller, the racketeer, the gangster. Well, the deal was, John D. Rockefeller was the one that was profiting by it. He stopped all the alcohol sales going to cars, which were getting more and more popular, and it was the preferred fuel. Now we got a little bit of ethanol in our fuel, right? But it's heavily subsidized by the government. And anything you do to produce any kind of fuel is subject to all kinds of regulation. And it's ridiculous. It's beyond ridiculous. I mean, if you just go back to the way things were in 1910, where a farmer can make all the alcohol they want, and you could just drive up to a farm and get your car filled up with alcohol and let it run, or use it for medicinal purposes or just for drinking if you want to get. It's actually alcohol. If you drink a shot a day, it's actually very helpful. It kills microbes and all this type of stuff. A lot of people out there that are very old that drink a little bit every day. But the other side of the racket is the DUI. I mentioned about what the Marine Corps on this one base was doing. And you got all these DUI checkpoints and stuff. They're checking for this, they're checking for that. And this is another racket. This is feeding mega bucks not only into the states, but the insurance companies. Holy smokes, man. You're going to pay, if you get a DUI, you're going to pay tens of thousands of dollars more in insurance over the next dozen years or so. They love this. So why drink anything? And the other angle is going to be this. They're going to say, oh, look, driverless cars. Ooh. And that's going to be another regulated thing to the max. Actually, people are very stupid when they follow anything there's a big push for. Do the opposite. That's really what I do. I mean, really. This whole thing, I know you got traffic accidents, vehicle fatalities and all this, but for the most part, say for instance somebody was like driving and they had, a couple drinks or something and they're not driving bad, but they got popped on the test. Obviously, that person didn't commit a crime as far as hurting anybody or even driving erratically, but since they didn't pass the blood test or breathalyzer, they're going to be charged with, DUI, go to court, and all this garbage. Maybe, they're going to pay attorney's fees up to the yin yang, and they're going to be doing. There's my cat, Miss Golddigger the Clutch. She's funny. So but basically that's one racket where the government's getting your money. But then the other side, and every state is different. Sometimes if you're talking like Illinois and stuff, I mean, the alcohol tax is going to be sky high. But they're charging people. You got state taxes on alcohol, you got federal taxes on alcohol. Most of it's taxes, about half of it, roughly half of it. I mean, it varies per state, but roughly half of what you pay on regular alcohol. Like beer is a little less, and beer is a lot less, and wine is a lot less. But alcohol, forget it. The taxes are sky high. That's why they really hate moonshining, because they're going to lose money. Now, even if you look at the issue with beer, God, even this is kind of a side note. Most beer today, or pretty much all beer, most of it, is not even beer what it was 50 years ago. Made with hops and natural ingredients. It's just got some flavoring. They throw some alcohol in it. Stuff is like a poisonous concoction, for crying out loud. It's amazing that they're taxing something like that that's ruining your health. Because like beer could be, when it was naturally made, you're having one or two beers a day or something, you're not overdoing it, that can be very helpful for you. But today's beer, forget about it. Plus it's taxed. I mean, not at this rate, but that's why I don't do any of this stuff, man. I'm like, forget it. I won't pay them any money. Here's from the cost of a DUI in California. Insurance increase for 15 years, $40,000. Towing and storage, $685. Could be more than that. DUI classes, $650. It could be thousands. Fines and attorney, $4,000. Could be a lot more than that. License reinstatement, that might be about right. It could really be about $60,000. For what? For what? For what? And the reality of it is, if you're a DA or you're a prosecutor or you're a judge, more than likely you're going to get away with it. That's another thing that makes me sick about this crap. And the other side of it is this. We got the new market coming on. Recreational marijuana, now this is recreational marijuana, not medical marijuana. I know medical marijuana is really getting on here strong. Well, they ought to just put cannabis in everything, for medical, medical concoctions that you need to take for illnesses. But I don't really think medical marijuana smoking is really that great, but it works for some issues, like Parkinson's and stuff like that. But it's not really a bad thing. But here, this is recreational marijuana, where it's legal, like in Maine, Massachusetts, Colorado, and all this garbage. Well, it's really legal just in Washington, Oregon, and Colorado, but it's getting there in these other states in the blue. But they're going to charge tax on this stuff. That's the thing. That's why I know recreational marijuana is going to wind up getting passed, because the government's going to make money on it. I mean, the government, you figure it out, man. They're taking most of your money as it is. That's how they are. You add up all the little stupid garbage, even when you go to buy something in the store, sales tax and the other hidden taxes behind it, and taxes even on the fuel for transportation for the items that get to the store. It's like you're paying taxes on top of taxes. It's a bunch of garbage. And you know what? My opinion of freaking people who work in the government, some of the worst garbage going, man. They really are. They're terrible. But my opinion on this, though, is you really got to go back to the way this freedom fighter girl was back here with the keg. This is back during Prohibition. She said to hell with it. Kind of like marijuana girl would do today. Like I said, I don't drink, I don't smoke weed, but I really believe in the freedom of people to be allowed to do this, and also to make their own alcohol and grow their own weed free from taxes or regulation. They should be able to do whatever the hell they want. And this is why they allowed alcohol again, because they want the money. They want the money on the sale of the booze. They want the money from the DUIs. Oh, they love this, man. It's a big image. I mean, I remember back about 40 years ago, or 40-something years ago when I first started driving, 45 years ago, whatever it was, they had, they would have laws against driving under the influence, driving, whatever, but they weren't like what they got today. I mean, if you were swerving all over the road, the cop might pull you over and say, we'll take a rest over here. You okay? He ain't gonna. They wouldn't. More than likely, they wouldn't pull out their breath. They didn't even have breathalyzers back then, I don't think. You know what I mean? They would say, sleep it off. You know what I mean? As long as you didn't crash into nothing, right? You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, that's really how they worked it back then. They, I don't really, and cars, nobody wore seat belts back then. There was no airbags. There was no shoulder straps. They only had to buckle lap belt. Nobody wore seat belts. And to tell you the truth, there was I don't. I think what the deal was, and the cars weren't even as safe. They didn't have anti-lock brakes. They had drum brakes that wouldn't work, and if you went through a big puddle, um, you know, I think the reason there was, I think it was a lot less traffic deaths from fatalities and stuff. But I think part of the reason was probably because people had more of a moral code back then, and I don't know, they just weren't crapping on each other as much. You know what I mean? I'm in a hurry, get the hell out. I mean, everybody was doing that somewhat, like in every situation, but they weren't doing that as much back then. Um, so that's food for thought because before they even had, I know they really played up the DUI stuff and mom, whatever you call that, Mao or whatever, mad, that's what it was. Mothers Against Drunk Drivers or whatever, But that all played into the state revenue scam. That's really what it is. But back before, people were drinking and driving pretty much all the time, man. I mean, that's pretty much, and the people were doing it a lot, man. I mean, if you crashed into the woods, um, more than likely there wouldn't be no DUI report or nothing. You'd be like, you crashed into the woods when they were drunk. As long as you didn't hurt nobody or something, right? That's the way it worked back then. Now they got to get the money, especially the insurance companies. But then they're getting all the money from taxes on the booze in the first place. So I'm like, forget it, forget it, go to hell. I ain't doing. I don't even drink anything. I'm like so. I've stopped drinking decades ago, just for that reason. It was like it got to a plateau where I said, this is getting stupid. And the more they freaking try to play the game like they're trying to help everybody in society, the more I'm like, yeah, whatever. So I'm like I don't do it. I don't bother with it. It's not really a moral thing, not at all. I wouldn't give a damn about drinking stuff otherwise. If I was making my own booze or something like that, yeah, fine. I don't care. But they played the game. I'm here from the government. I'm here to help you, or some garbage, or whatever the hell it is. Or you got to support. It's a patriotic thing to support prohibition or whatever. You know, whatever. They're playing a scam all along. Anything that passes is usually money related, and that's what it comes down to. So I don't go with their garbage the way it is today at all.